So when we look at Shari, I apologise, the abduction of Debra May, we can see that Mercury, which I was just talking about in the previous chart, has actually moved into Cancer. So whereas when he took Shari Faye, it was in Gemini, and then that's quite relative to her and her sister, and also to people being abducted as well. But now it's actually moved into Cancer. So he was quite happy to just get one person at this point in time. Although ideally, I think if this guy could have, he would have got two people. Why he actually went for a 9-year-old and a 17-year-old is quite confusing to pinpoint, because most people that do this sort of stuff, they either like doing that to young children or older children or teens or adults. You know, they have a preference. This guy really just didn't seem to care at all. So it really shows me a lot of this stuff in both of these charts show me that he was driven solely by this religious delusions. So, you know, Mars is a driven action type thing. And like I said previously, the 9th house is religion and spirituality. So he's driven to be like that. So, you know, if I was to hazard a guess and say, is this person mentally ill? Then yes, I would say that he is absolutely mentally ill. And does he know right from wrong? I think so. It doesn't matter now, but I think he did know right from wrong, and he chose to live two sides, two different ways. He chose to kill two people, and he did it very methodically, and he communicated very well with the families, albeit in a fantasy land, because some of the things that were said to the family was just insane, you know, where he considered himself to be a part of Shari and Shari a part of himself. It doesn't even make sense, let alone make for a viable excuse, which there never is one. Now, I actually do have a copy of his chart, and I'll just grab that. And that's here. Now, I don't know the time that he was born, so I've had to put the sun on the ascendant here. So I can't really take into account these houses. So it's difficult to do a natal chart without the time of birth. I don't like doing it, really. But what I can see is that the Moon and Pluto were together and very close to his Mercury there. And also, well, midpoint really between the Sun and Mercury. So, you know, expressing himself in relation to this crime was very obvious. So very Mercurian criminal, very Mercurian behaviour. And that really can be shown by Neptune conjunct Mercury as well. If Mercury is not expressed in the best way possible, and it's expressed at a lower function or a lower level alongside Neptune, which represents the ability to see things clearly or not see things clearly at all and be very confused. Put the confusion together with the mind and it can cause all sorts of issues. We can't trust that the moon is here in Aquarius because we don't know the time, and a little bit later on during the day it's going to move into Pisces, and I would say that it would be in Pisces and that this grand trine would still be effective because it's still within orb. So Uranus, the Sun, and the Moon. Doesn't really show that these problems stem too much from mummy or daddy. There's no contact between at the moment, or actually there wouldn't be at all, I wouldn't think, any contact with Saturn and the Moon, so that's Dad. The Sun and the Moon is a trine, so it seems like whatever Mum and Dad did, they did probably amicably. I think this has come from deep within himself, deep-rooted issues of not knowing who he is and not knowing what these voices, which is Mercury and Neptune, can't distinguish the difference between himself, his thoughts, and God in his case. Okay, so there's another thing that stands out here, and that is Mercury and Neptune squaring, which is the red line, and that's 90 degrees basically, Jupiter. Okay, now it's in, Jupiter doesn't like being in Capricorn. It's a horrible position for Jupiter anyway. It's not a comfortable placement for it. But what Jupiter does is it expands, and it does many things, but as a general rule of consensus, it expands. So what it's doing when it's squaring this Mercury, which is the mind, and Neptune, which is that sense of spirituality, the sense of illusion, delusion, all those things. It's not well. It's not acting at its higher vibration in a really big way. Very detrimental to this man's health. So this shows me here that there's definitely some mental illness there. Whenever Mercury is involved with something heavy like that, then you've got to consider that there's something not quite right with the mind, because the mind is what Mercury is all about and how it expresses itself, at which level. It would be nice if we had the time of birth so we could get the houses, because I'd be very interested to see where, if anything, sits in his third house. Jupiter here, it actually suits it. It fits Neptune and Mercury in the 12th house. This is the hidden subconscious mind. That fits as well. That shows us that his thinking is very dark. It's coming from a very subconscious level. If he was more akin to being a higher vibrationary being, then he could probably have cut through the bullshit and seen people for who they are, but he's not. He was a low-level person, and he's just kept all of that disgusting, perverted stuff that he likes to himself in a big way, and then he likes to talk about it. So, you know, this chart could be fairly accurate, even though I've just pulled the time out of thin air. Quite often, just making these charts, pulling them up and putting the sun on the ascendant like that can actually show us the chart itself. But I don't want to just say that, yes, it is definitely like that, because I can't say for sure. But I can say for sure that there was something wrong with this guy's thinking. And I don't think we can really blame it on Mum or Dad or anybody but himself. Okay, so I think that's it for now. These could go so long, these videos, but I would rather do more of them and start putting more content up on YouTube than just ramble on for hours about the same things. But I want to really give an idea of how profiling works, how we can see a person's personality, but more importantly, how event charts, 911 charts, and last seen event charts can show us so much about missing persons, abducted persons, people that are murdered. It can find victims. You know, it's using horary rules for directions and places to look, and it's using natal astrology in terms of psychologically pulling apart the possible person, profile of the person, the suspect. And it just goes along hand in hand so well with police work and with the research that's undertaken. I would never say just use astrology by itself. It doesn't work that way. It needs to be used in conjunction with evidence and with what we know. It's taken from times that are important. It's not just something, it's not psychic information. I do have an ability to see certain things in the chart a little differently than some people, but I am not a psychic. I'm not reading a crystal ball, you know, looking at a crystal ball, or I don't doubt at all that psychics are real and that they can do everything that they do. And I know some people that are so good at their job. It's amazing to me because I need a tool, and astrology is a perfect tool. It's a valid tool to me. It's an actual reflection of what's going on in the sky, or you know, the planets, the universe above us at that particular time, and it's a culmination of basically statistical research into studying the cycles of the planets revolving around the sun, and that's it. And over again, it starts to show us patterns. And I think it would be fantastic if law enforcement was a little bit more open-minded and would consider using this alongside their general techniques of investigation, because I really think that it would help a lot. Okay, I'm going to leave it there, and my next video I'm actually going to be looking at the West Memphis 3 case, which I've been doing for many years. So thank you very much for listening, and see you next time.